Hello, and welcome to another episode of Why Are You Laughing at Me with me, Gherkin Picklewater, and uh, Dave Haaz-Baroque. Okay,
Oh yeah, he ain't here. He
okay.
is in the bathroom and he has a really bad Hershey squirts.
Oh Lord, okay.
Yeah.
Would
He's
you?
been drinking this thing called the Great Pumpkin. It's like Kahlua and pumpkin creamer. He's been drinking them all night and doesn't sound pretty in there.
Yeah, that
It's
sounds kind
pretty
of
good.
horrific. Um,
Yeah.
Are you willing to talk to me for a little bit?
Yeah, all right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, what is this? What are we doing? What's
This
this
is
game?
this is a video podcast called Why Are You Laughing at Me? All about how about professionally funny people
Are
and
they laughing at you?
yeah, why are you laughing at me?
Why am I'm not I just met you.
Well, there you go. Why aren't you laughing at me?
I
Probably
don't
because I'm
know.
not being funny.
Oh, you want to hear something funny?
I
You
would
want to hear
love
something
to.
funny? Do you?
Yeah.
Dave's gonna be in that bathroom a long, long time. You know why? You know why? Do you
Why?
know? Do you?
No, I don't.
Eh,
So
eh,
you're a little trickster, are you?
you ain't going nowhere. Hatchet! Hold on. I think he's on to me. Hatchet, did you take a TP again? I don't know what's worth it to you. God damn it, Hatchet, I'm not messing around. I think it's like $5 a sheet, and I've been listening. I think there's like a 15 sheet job. God damn it, Hatchet. Yeah. I think I got the camera here for a while.
Okay. So you're Hatchet.
Yeah.
Hatchet, what are you?
I am a Deinonychus Anteropus.
That is a dinosaur of some description.
It is. It is. We are some of the smartest, fastest, most ingenious dinosaurs to ever roam the land.
So how do you come to be here with me right now?
Through the internet.
Okay, that's patently obvious, and I should have thought of
Yes.
it myself. So Hatchet, how do you know Dave?
He lets me crash it sometimes. Sometimes go through his wallet when he's not looking. Hatchet, god damn it! If you don't let me have that toilet paper, I'm using your comic books. Oh, damn it, hold on. I cannot let this stand.
Okay.
Damn it, those. Come on, Hatchet. Don't you touch my Drew comics. Don't you touch it. They give me the toilet paper, god damn it. Don't you? Fine. But you know what? You're the real monster. You're the real monster. Oh, okay. I'm so sorry about that. I That got really ugly. I'm
That's
really sorry.
okay. We all have.
I I
Hi, Dave. How are you?
I'm good. I'm better now. So
Good.
much better now.
So, by way of introduction, you are Dave Haaz-Baroque. You are
Correct.
a comedian and a puppeteer and other things. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell the people a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Dave Haaz-Baroque. I am the creator of Shadow Circus Creature Theater, which is a local puppetry troupe. We produce our own shows, we do our own videos, and then I do a lot of puppetry for other shows like Misfit Cabaret and Peaches Christ Terrible and occasionally stuff for a couple of Oasis productions. They're Buff the Vampire Slayer things. So yeah, I'm kind of a we do a creature stuff both for our own comedic things and for other productions around town.
That's very cool. What brought you to both comedy and puppetry in the first place?
Well, puppetry is the sort of thing I've kind of been doing on and off since I was like 8 years old. I started making puppets just out of junk and stuff like that when I was a little kid. Um, Partially, puppetry was good in that you could kind of tell a story and do a little production and stuff with just yourself or just one or two people because you could really control the whole thing. You could control all of the characters if you wanted to with very minimal resources. Also, we were very, very poor. We had to make our own entertainment. So making little characters and stuff out of trash was just, something that we did. And yeah, there was something about making characters that could just be visually the purest form of what their character was that's different from what you could do with regular actors, and that always appealed to me. Plus just the idea of design and construction and everything else always appealed to me as well. Yeah.
Right. So where does your comedy come from at its root?
I mean, some of it comes from experience. I early on in my career, in particular, I cribbed very, very, very much from the stuff that I thought was funny. My early stuff, in particular, when I was younger, when I was a teenager and stuff, was very, very, very based on like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy because I was a big Douglas Adams fan. Uh, Later on, when South Park came out, like I borrowed very heavily from that. But yeah, I mean, one of the things about the comedy that I write is it does tend to be very talky, which for a puppeteer is generally considered less than ideal. Like every puppetry course that I've ever taken, they've always said, like, if you're a successful puppeteer, you should be able to do a whole comedy show without saying a single word, just doing it all with objects and movement. And I'm like, that is not me. That is not me at all. My work is very talky. My characters are very talky. Everything is very, very verbal. Um, and I'm really into sort of both in what I like to as comedy and what I like writing. Very quick, almost like rhythmic rat-a-tat sort of vaudevillian dialogue. Like I really love the Marx Brothers. So what I really loved about Douglas Adams is that very like almost musical sense of
Hmm.
dialogue. Uh, yeah, so that was kind of and that was kind of what I was brought up in when I got into comedy as a kid. Stuff that I'd heard on the Dr. Mento show, stuff that I had read was all that sort of almost vaudevillian comedy, and that's really where I took a lot of my inspiration from, and it's a lot of what I still enjoy to this day.
So given that those are kind of where your basis started,
Hmm.
what do you find funny? What is it that currently in your life, what is it you find humorous?
So I have noticed that in some ways my humor has become a little less nihilist than it was when I was younger.
Okay.
Um, I used to really be into sort of very nihilistic, defeatist comedy, and I think around 2016, wonder what happened then. I think my comedy things have softened a little bit. Uh, so now I like stuff that is still a little bit has a little bit of teeth, but I enjoy things that have a little bit of a softer edge to it. I love Bob's Burgers. That's been a comfort show for a long time now. Um, I think the characters in that are great. I think that the humor is incredible. But it also kind of has a lot of that very like sharp, snappy dialogue.
Yeah.
But it's not quite as like whereas I used to be very, very much into things like South Park and Rick and Morty, I think I would have absolutely loved in my 20s. That I have a little bit less taste for quite that level of cynicism and nihilism now as I did when I was younger. I like very bizarre comedy. Like I really love. There's a new show out that I think it was actually you that first introduced me to Mighty Boosh.
Oh
I
yeah,
think you were the first person that like told me about Mighty Boosh. I love Mighty Boosh. Have you seen? I feel like it is very much sort of like the graduation of that sort of comedy. Have you seen Phantasmas yet?
I've not seen Phantasmas.
You need to watch Phantasmas. It's so, 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 so good. And it's very similar to Boosh in that everything looks very handmade, everything is very stylized, and it's just really a lot of like throwing stuff at the walls to see what sticks sort of comedy, which I'm a big fan of. Like one of the things is the main characters can sort of see the inner lives of just like non-sentient concepts. So like he has this whole bit that's about like the inner life of the letter Q, which he thinks is like a bizarre letter. This should not be so early in the alphabet, and that it should be like closer to the end with the X's and the Y's and the Z's, all the weird letters that don't get used a lot. Q is in the wrong spot on the alphabet, and then it like cuts over to like the personal life of the letter Q, who's played by Steve Buscemi, and him like trying to do like these sort of like noise music things and other letters saying like you gotta like soften your edges and stuff like that, like listen to me, like I'm not too much different from you. I just took off the edge and now everyone likes me. Like weird stuff like that that's just very conceptual, but just kind of takes it to this very like if we take this weird concept and turn it into its own character with its own sort of weird, rich inner life, uh, just kind of throwing all those weird things at the wall. And I love that. I love stuff like that that's just not afraid to try uh new and bizarre things, especially when it is coupled with this sort of handmade aesthetic style. Like just every piece of it feels very, very detail oriented, very crafted, and creating like not just a setup for a joke, but a whole world that this joke lives in to sort of sell the conceit.
And that's very much like the Boosh.
It's
Um,
very like the Boosh, yeah.
Mighty Boosh. So Phantasm, the TV show. Have you seen much of Auntie Donna?
No, I'm not familiar with that.
Auntie Donna is a Australian or New Zealand, Australian or Kiwi comedy sketch comedy group, and they're very surrealist, Dadaist in their own way. So you might enjoy them. It's definitely worth checking out.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I do think that there is, when it comes to surrealist humor, though, like, I don't know, it's weird. Like, I can't even 100% put my finger on, because I feel like there's like a balancing act where there's some that I'll see that I don't like at all. Like, I don't like Tim and Eric, like, no
yeah,
offense to people that do, but like, that's sort of surrealist, Dadaist thing that just, it never grabbed me. I don't enjoy it. I couldn't get through it. But just other things like Boosh and Phantasmus and stuff, I just completely like eat it up. And
I've never been able to get into Tim and Eric myself.
yeah,
Oh, they just had one of them on a. Do you watch? Do you follow Dropout at all?
no.
Dropout is a streaming service by the people who used to do College Humor, and when
Oh,
they
okay.
fire everyone
Oh, yes, 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 yes,
on
yes. I
it
did what you're
and
talking
made
about.
their own streaming service, and they have a bunch of it's all humor oriented in one form or another. They have a lot of different shows, but they had Tim, I think Tim from Tim and Eric on there, and
Mm,
it was just odd.
yeah.
He was just an episode of something. Um, so where does your comedy fit in terms of aesthetics and how does aesthetics affect your comedy like the visually physically and so on where do you how do you relate to aesthetics in comedy?
I mean, I think that since we are a puppetry troupe, not like a sketch comedy troupe or anything like that. I mean, I almost feel like we're all aesthetic. Um, in that the character design very, very, very much sort of like helps to sell like what that character is and what that character's shtick is. Like Hatchet, the Deinonychus, is a very like sleazy sort of like scam artist reptilian creature. So of course, he's got the leather jacket and he's got the pointy teeth and everything. And then there's Wesley, who's a little bit naive and kind of more of a youthful character that's just all big doe eyes and like a quivering mouth. And hipster Sasquatch that has to have his little pork pie hat and his like flannel shirt and everything. So I mean, really, when we go into designing the characters, I say somebody else, but me day drinking and working in my kitchen. But when I go to design the characters, like aesthetic is a very big part of what goes into sort of selling the type of comedy we're going to do with that character. And then like sort of beyond that in our full shows and in the stage shows that we produce, and then along with some of our videos and stuff like that, we have I've kind of also learned to sort of tie the aesthetic into both selling the comedy and like what my sort of technical limitations are. So what I found is, I took digital special effects, I took editing, I went to art college to learn uh, how to do CGI and things like that. And I kind of stopped about the level where I could do sort of like 1989, 1992 special effects. And that's like that's about as far as I got before I had to drop out of school. And what I found though was like for our aesthetic, like that was just this sort of perfect era in media where visual effects from a computer standpoint were like not very good, just kind of getting there, but puppetry effects were really good. And so kind of pitching our aesthetic at this, you know, kind of embracing this almost like nostalgic thing of like, we'll do a fake commercial that's like intentionally bad green screen with like an 80 synth score and stuff, and it just looks like an infomercial that you would have run into in the middle of the night at like 1989 or something like that. And it's in the level of what's my skill set to create. And we've also kind of adapted our comedy to like, there's something about that that's inherently fun. There's something about like when Hatchet's trying to sell like a weird, online course or something, if it looks like something that was made badly, uh on sort of local TV in the middle of the night, like that sort of helps sell the comedy as well, like embracing that aesthetic and kind of tying them together, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. The whole thing reminds me of, did you have, briefly, I did puppetry with you,
Mm,
for two or three things.
sure.
And I was a cockroach named Nomi or Klaus.
Kafka.
Kafka, it was Kafka.
Kafka.
Was he dressed like Klaus Nomi?
He was dressed like Klaus Nomi, yeah, because he
That's
had
right.
a
Okay.
musical number that we had to sing in falsetto. And that puppet has actually found new life.
Oh, great.
Um, and that, I tried to sell this cockroach as this sort of bug character, as this character Kafka. Um, that was supposed to be sort of a sidekick to Hatchet. And somehow it never 100% really clicked. And then during the pandemic, when I was doing uh streaming shows, I don't know if you saw any of them. Like, I think they generally had an audience of about 30, 40 people. So it wasn't, they didn't get huge numbers, but I was able to, during the pandemic, spend a lot of time really working on sort of like video editing and stuff like that. I had this regular segment that's since become a part of our live show, where the show would just be intercepted by aliens. And I just kind of grabbed like what puppets would work for this. And so there was the mini version, because there were two different sized versions of the cockroach puppet, and then another alien that was just like had a eye collar and a big brain. And I'm like, these are just the aliens for the sequence. And this chick was like, they didn't speak English. It was just like bah, 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 and then it was all subtitles. And that was people's like some of their favorite segments, was just those two aliens intercepting to like do their own little like commentary on the show, all in subtitles, and then cutting out again. And it was one they quickly became um two of our more popular characters. So they've regularly become part of the regular show,
Oh, that's
not just for the streaming show, but then we went back to producing live shows again, which we started to do things with rear projections and things like that. We integrated into that as well, where the live show will get hijacked by these two alien characters, which all the rear projections and stuff was a thing I stole from Noel Fielding when I saw him live, and I saw how much he could do with rear projections and effects and everything like that. That he could do more with less, and I was like, "Ooh, I make a note of that," and started putting it in my.
So speaking of shows, live shows specifically, because it's harder to judge with streaming, how do you deal with failure when you go up and something just does not work? When the audience is just not accepting it, not picking up on it, how do you deal and respond to failure in performance?
Um, it depends on the reason it's failing, honestly. There was a long, long time early in Shadow Circus career, uh, where we were a lot more improv, where we kind of have uh, a sketchy outline of what we wanted to do. But then we just kind of riff off it, and then the shows would maybe be like as long as an hour long, and we'd get drunk before, because we were really into in our 20s being the punk rock puppeteers. We don't need to rehearse. We'll just kind of like riff, and it'll be fine. If we offend people, we don't care, because we're the punk rock puppeteers. And it really, we didn't get asked back a lot of places. We didn't get a lot of enthusiasm. I mean, there would be a few people that just enjoyed the chaos, because it always ended up not even finishing the outline, it just being a messy, chaotic disaster that like shambled to pieces, and the puppets would end up broken. It would just be a mess. Um, And like I said, you know, we wouldn't get booked for places more than once, and you know, it took a while for us to not be like, well, yeah, we're punk rock, that's what we're doing. And I think the end result was, you know, the turning point for me was when we opened for Dresden Dolls, which should have been a very big deal. We opened for Dresden Dolls in their first tour in San Francisco at Cafe du Nord, and we went on for like an hour, and it was a drunken mess, like it always is. And because that was like our largest audience, there was the most reactions for it, and people hated it for the most part, except Amanda Palmer, who sat through the whole thing. Bless her heart. Um, but you know, people have Amanda Palmer's reputation since then is what it is, but bless her for staying through that show. But yeah, so I got a lot more feedback online back then than I usually would, because it was probably the biggest audience we performed in front of, and the biggest feedback that we got was that it was boring. That us being drunk, belligerent idiots on stage for an hour, it wasn't offensive. It wasn't edgy. It wasn't interesting. It wasn't like totally in your face and challenging norms. It was just boring watching a bunch of like drunken idiots burn their way through an hour on stage. And that really made me, reading that feedback and seeing that failure really um, made me reevaluate the way that we did Shadow Circus and be like, oh no, we need to, I spend so much time building the puppets. I need to spend an equal amount of time writing and rehearsing and trying to make this a show. And so, and there's other times where we failed where I've just been like, you know what? This in particular isn't the audience for me. Like, I've done this before other places and it's been on fire. And so I know that just right here, maybe this just isn't the right spot for this particular thing. And that's fine. If an audience doesn't like you, like maybe that's just not the right spot for it, the right atmosphere or whatnot. But I mean, I don't like when comedians or artists or whatever, if they bomb and they get mad at the audience. I never appreciate that, because I think no matter what, it's either a product of maybe what you're doing works, just not here, or maybe what you're doing really doesn't work. Either it needs a complete retool or it needs a little bit of tweaking, but even if something's great, sometimes you're just in front of the wrong audience at that time, and that's okay. But the important thing as a performer is trying to learn to adjust and know which is which. Because on the converse side of that, I kind of stopped overwriting when I do things like the Edwardian Ball, which I should know better. I can do the Edwardian Ball and we can kill at the Edwardian Ball as long as it is not a talky performance. That's not a place where people want to like listen to dialogue, where they want to listen to jokes. It all has to be atmospheric puppets behind music, and you're great if you try and tell jokes and nobody's listening. And it's the same with bar shows. Like, you can't, that's not the place for quippy dialogue. And it doesn't mean that those scripts and that dialogue are bad. It just means like that's not the place for it. And sometimes my ego's got in the way of that. I've tried to do it anyway, and then everything's falling flat because they're busy talking to their friends at the bar because that's what they're doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, these are long rambling answers.
Springing off that to some degree, audiences and failure and success. Do you find that you write more in terms of your comedy, for yourself or for the audience?
I would say I don't necessarily write for a broad audience. I write for myself at inside jokes, and I hope that it's universal enough that people laugh. Like, I feel really, really blessed when I'm involved with things like Misfit Cabaret or Peaches Christ projects or things like that, because I feel like those are things that have a bit broader appeal. My stuff I know is not necessarily for broad appeal, and there's literally things that have been in my personal life that have worked their way into the script. Anyone that knows me intimately, uh, like my partner, like Charlie Gray, who is my lead puppeteer, like Kat Robichaux, who runs Misfit Cabaret, can go through my script and see jokes and stuff and realize and recognize, like, oh, I remember when that happened for real. And I will never tell the general audience what those things are, but like things in my real life do get integrated into the script, and I enjoy doing that, knowing that there will be 3 or 4 people that get it, and knowing that I myself I'm getting a little bit of a kick out of putting something so personal in the script without people knowing that it's personal. But yeah, I mean, largely I like things that I know will amuse me, that I know that Shadow Circus is such an acquired taste. Like I feel like the people that like Shadow Circus as Shadow Circus, not seeing Shadow Circus puppets and Misfit Cabaret, not people that enjoy seeing my stuff at other people's productions, but the people that like Shadow Circus comedy, I feel like are a pretty specific bunch and know my flavor of comedy and come for that. And so like I write for me and I write for people that kind of appreciate that really specific.
Nice. I find that, and I've had this conversation, discussion, disagreement with clown partners and so on many times. Or I write for me, almost
Mm.
entirely for me, whereas many of them write for what they think the audience will enjoy. I think they're both very valid.
Yeah.
And I think writing for an audience, what an audience will enjoy, will often give you a much more successful show. But
Mm.
I personally do my stuff based on what I think is funny, and that is a much smaller niche audience. Okay, just a few.
And,
Go ahead.
and I had to recognize that like I am in a pretty strong position of privilege to be able, like if I, I have a day job that supports me.
Hmm.
Uh, I probably work on art is at least the equivalent of a pretty heavy part-time job of 24 to 30 hours a week anyway, but I don't need to rely on audience numbers to pay my rent.
Hmm.
And so, artists that do have to worry about making enough ticket sales and stuff like that, like I need to worry about, can I get enough to keep my weird little thing going? And I don't need a lot of ticket sales for that. I don't need a ton of success for that. So, and there is a thrill out of performing for hundreds of people. I don't think my humor very often does get to do that. So I'm pretty lucky that other people that do get to do that still get to hire me to work with them, because that's not something that Shadow Circus Voidville is probably ever going to get. And that's something that I've accepted.
Okay. Speaking of Voidville, um,
Hmm.
where can people find your material? What do you got coming up?
So what I'm working right now is Peaches Christ Terrible. So it's not my thing. Like everything right now, everything is going to be all head on towards Halloween. So I'm working on that. Me and my girlfriend, Kat Faye Fatale. There's Kat Atwood, who's my girlfriend, and then there's Kat Robichaux, who I work with a lot. And then I have 2 cats. So like everything in my world is cat. So I have to make the distinction. So Kat, my girlfriend, and I are putting together a show in Petaluma at Capu on October 4th. It's going to be puppets and drag and burlesque, and my girlfriend belly dances. It is a bar show, so that's probably going to be less talky, kind of as we talked about before, but it is still gonna have puppets. It's still gonna be fun. Um, so yeah, and so I'm doing that. I'm doing a thing, Shadow Dance, which is the 15th of November, which is gonna be a short, which is gonna be a sketch, a puppet sketch that I'm doing with Kat, my girlfriend, Kat. And that is a sit down like theater performance that goes on. So that is going to be more of a sketch comedy thing with dance in it. But yeah, but for the most part, all hands on deck for building lots and lots and lots of creatures for Terrible. Which, if folks aren't familiar with it, I think I saw one of your things. You talked to Peaches as well for one of these, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm really looking forward to watching that one. I've
So
been really curious what her. I'm
yeah,
guessing John Waters is in there.
Yeah, we talked a lot about Divine. We talked a lot about her inspirations.
Yeah.
Um,
So folks at home that don't know, she runs a haunt called Terrible. Her and David Flowers uh run a haunt called Terrible, which is a very, very, very elevated, high quality, like Hollywood effects caliber haunt. It's very, very, very scripted, very good storylines. It's not just like, oh, someone in fake blood jumped out and blah. Like they spend a lot of time on scripting and acting and rehearsing and getting top of the line special effects. And so I'm building creatures for that, which I'm very, very, very happy to do.
that's very cool. All right, so where can people find you online?
They can find me at shadow my website is shadowcircus.com. I am terrible at updating it. I am terrible at updating it. Do people look at websites anymore, or do they just follow the
I don't
socials?
know. I never update mine either, and it's
I right before I apply for like a con or a festival or something like that, I'll like go back and retroactively like update the last 2 years so that it doesn't look like I was idle. So you could go to my website, you could go, but if you really want to know what's going on, find me on the socials. I am on Instagram at Creature Theater, and that is the European pretentious spelling of theater.
what
TRE at the end. If you look up Shadow Circus Creature Theater on the Facebook, I'm pretty good about updating that. But yeah, my Facebook and my Instagram cross post. Same with TikTok. I'm Creature Theater on TikTok, but like really, if you follow any of those, I post more or less the same thing on all of them. I think there's slightly more event stuff on the Facebook one, but yeah, just find me at most things at Creature Theater.
All right, my last question.
Yeah.
This is a little harder. Um, doesn't have to be your favorite, just one you like. Tell me a joke.
Oh, I don't know. God damn. As a comedian, you should know that anytime somebody comes up to you and is like, go on, say something funny, then nothing will make your mind wipe faster. Nothing makes your mind wipe faster than saying do something funny. Nothing. Oh my God. Okay. Hold on. I actually, where's my phone? Because I was actually taking notes on stuff because
Okay.
I wanted to pitch something to one of the projects I'm working on. So I was putting together bad vampire jokes
Okay.
because I wanted to do, I wanted to pitch at one of the things I'm working on to have Count Fatula do a bad flailing stand-up act. So I was writing stuff. What did I write? Let me see if I can remember any of it. These are definitely not my favorites. I came up with them today. What did I write? What did I come up with? This one, yeah.
Okay.
This is funny if you picture it by a puppet vampire.
Okay.
Don't worry, this isn't my day job. During the day, I'm really into the crypto.
That's actually pretty good, Dave. I like that. I'm a fan of a pun though, so wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us on Why Are You Laughing at Me? And everyone go see all the stuff that Shadow Circus Creature Theater is doing and that Dave is doing. And I'll talk to you again very soon, okay?
Yeah.
All right, I'll see you later, man. Thank you.
I
Bye.